I turned my back to the camera guy because he's faced off against this one. I turned my back to him, and I'm holding this thing.
Oh
And
my God.
there's this Cuban crocodile. He's coming right up to the end of this thing, and I'm just again. I have that moment. I go, "What are the choices I've made?"
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shoot the Shit, a podcast that tells the unfiltered tales of filmmakers' craziest on-set and production experiences.
Because every shit situation on set makes for a great story after. I'm Kristen, a director and editor.
And I'm Taylor, also a director and editor. Today, our guest is Steve Jones, a writer, director, and showrunner. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Steve, do you want to share a little bit with us about who you are and what you do?
But what you just said in the intro is so key to so many of my experiences and the experiences of the people that I've worked with over the years, which is, if I had a tattoo, it would probably read, pain is temporary, film is forever, So, so I started as a musician. I'm just old enough to have been part of the very first punk rock movement in Los Angeles, very youth-oriented movement. The punk rock started in New York, then it bounced to London, then it came to LA. And I got my first record deal when I was 17, and I had a whole career as a professional musician until I retired at 28. And then after a brief stint doing other fun things like rock climbing and armored jousting, I got tapped by the Walt Disney Company to start a record label. And that label still exists. It's called Hollywood Records, I'm proud to say. And so I went over there with tons of imposter syndrome because I was just a guy in a band. And here I was in this creative exec position at Disney. And I was sure every day somebody was going to walk into the office and say, "We know you don't know what the hell you're doing. Get the hell out of here." But no, they didn't. And at the same time, I wrote my first number one hit song for another band called Asia. Excuse me. For another band called Asia. And so my life completely changed at about age 30. And then I had a bad rock climbing wreck, and I ended up shattering my legs, and I was in a wheelchair on the Disney lot. There are still places on the Disney lot that are cut for a wheelchair that did that for me. And as a result, I couldn't do my job as well. My job was as an A&R guy, which is somebody who goes out and is a talent scout. So you go and you see bands all over the country, the world. But in LA, my job would be going to several clubs a night and checking out bands. Sometimes for, a couple of minutes, because it didn't take me long to know I wasn't interested. But you still got to get in and out of these places and move quickly. So long story short, I got sort of desk duty while I was in that wheelchair. I did go to some clubs. I wasn't a complete wuss, but I just couldn't really do the job for a while there as thoroughly. So I got involved in the films that we were making with, I got involved with films that were being made with our music. So we had signed Queen, and so we did Wayne's World. And then one of my bands was a band called the Poor Boys, and we had a hit with a movie called The Mighty Ducks. And so, again, I had no business doing this. All I had was a passion for music and a passion for film. And in fact, while I was doing that, I realized that actually film was what I wanted to do because I had more passion for trying to figure out how to put the right image with the right music. I had as much passion doing that as I did when I was 16 and making my first records.
Wow.
So I started making a lateral move during the end of my 4 years at Disney, where I was writing treatments for videos. Then I learned to edit. Then I started directing videos. And this was back when directing music videos there was a real business in that. There were big budgets. You could make money. And it was also a natural stepping off place to go into film and television. A lot of people who've gone on to have big careers in film and television started in music business. Now that's not so much of a business anymore. At least it's not a business that makes much money, but it's a wonderful way to get started in business, because and especially doing what I was doing, which was music videos and then transitioning to documentaries. I was one man banding a lot of that, so it forced me to learn how to do everything, how to shoot, how to do sound, as I mentioned, I really started as an editor, and working with talent and all. That's the tip of the spear of the whole huge mountain of issues that come with being a filmmaker.
I've definitely done a lot of that. Oh, go ahead.
What's that? No,
I was gonna say I've definitely done a lot of the one woman bands thing, and it's hectic, but you do learn a lot from doing that.
Yeah. It's a wonderful university. And then, later on, once so I ended up basically being, an MTV slave for about 5 years. And that was just fantastic. I mean, I worked on all different kinds of shows and things, and it was all very fast paced and low budget. And, it's notorious for being, a brutal place to work. And that all served me very well. And to your point, when you have figured out, often the hard way, how to do these different jobs on the set and in post production, then you know how to do those things. And so now you have all these different languages you can speak to people. And I would say that I would say there's a lot of suits that haven't liked me in my career and do not like me much in my career, but my crews love me. And that is because we speak the same language. And I have a lot of respect for them as well. That I would say that's probably the number one thing that I learned from having done all the positions on film sets is the amount of respect I have for the people doing those jobs. So once I was the quote unquote boss, which is like nobody's actually ever the boss. Somebody trumps you, if only the audience. But once you're the showrunner, and people are always saying, it must be fun to be the boss. It's like, oh no, it's the worst thing. It's a terrible burden. But you do in some cases have a shot to make the art the way you want to make it, and that's what we all want. I mean, I think all our artists, or most artists, if they were truthful, would say they want to share their art with as many people as possible. But a lot of people who get in the position of, being the boss, and if they haven't had the experience of having the big heavy camera on your shoulder for 15 hours a day, and all the varied myriad versions of that in this business, if they haven't had those experiences, well, you can't understand what you can't understand. And so as a result, I think a lot of times they don't get the best out of the people who are working with them. This is a collaborative art form for the most part, and and I've had my share of tussles with people on sets. I never punch down. It's always up. I'm always punching up. But a lot of the time it would come from my inherent reactiveness to people mistreating what I call the frontline gladiators, the camera and sound, and the people who are just right there making this thing happen. And without them, you got nothing. And I would be the first guy to go, and I'm far from a pushover, and I would be pretty tough. And I also believe you lead by example. So I would, I have tremendous energy, so I would be always not asking anybody to do anything I wouldn't do, and I'd be right out there leading the charge. But I was also be the first to say, okay, camera guys, put it down, take 10, because I know what is being shot we're never going to use. This is just wasting their eyes for when we need them. Yeah. And then it's not only wasting my camera and sound and my mind and everybody's mind, but it's then you got to log all that crap, and somebody has to look at it in post, and it's just diminishing returns. And what I think happens sometimes, and I've certainly been in this experience, and I've certainly had this experience, is, somebody who from the network or whatever will, it's like they don't understand that less is more. It's like more is more. Everything is more. Give me as much as possible. I'm paying for this, or my company's paying for this. So shoot everything, for 15 hours a day, and then, ask them to, to go shoot something else. It's just like, and that doesn't work. So
it's a nightmare for the editor who has to look for all that.
For everybody, yes, absolutely. The assistant editor, the loggers, everybody is like, why did you shoot this?
Yeah.
But in order to have to be able to make those calls, that comes from confidence. Is like, I'm confident that nobody's ever going to watch this shit, and so that can be hard to do if you don't legitimately have that confidence. And that comes from, a certain amount of insanity and delusion. And it also comes from just, having done it for years, and getting to the point where it's like, I'm seeing nothing here that, we can't live without,
Yeah.
So,
right. And it sounds like that confidence comes from the fact that you have worked like every position. So like what is the necessity?
Yeah. And it's the best thing I ever did was, as you were talking about, is like, being a one person filmmaking unit is there's just no better way to learn what's going on with those positions. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, or necessarily have to, you're going to be the best shooter or the best sound person or the best editor. But if you speak that language and you actually understand the steps it takes to do that job well, you're going to have a much better time, a much better relationship with the people in those positions.
Each department does have its own language for sure. So
it really does. And the way that they communicate and who they communicate with. And it really takes a person who is savvy and who is, confident, like you said, to kind of like protect that workflow and make sure that, it is functioning the way that it should. And you're not just shooting stuff for the sake of shooting stuff and, just overdoing those hard drives that you've brought on set. So with that, I'm curious to know, right off the bat, we only have like a little bit of a tidbit here, but your first story has something to do with a helicopter shoot in Idaho. And I'm just curious to know exactly, what your role was on set and how you navigated that.
Yes, we were producing a show for the Weather Channel. They had gone into reality television for a while, which everybody does, it seems like, at some point or another. And it was a show that we developed called Turbine Cowboys. And it was about the people who work on the windmills. And it was, because it was for the Weather Channel, they wanted as much extreme weather as possible. And so we were sending out crews to different places where we had stories that we had researched and developed. And some of that was pretty good stuff, but a lot of it was boring. It was just, there was nothing happening. There was no weather. It was, and I was like, again, going back to what we were just talking about, well, I can't shoot that. That's not going to be a show. And so I was literally, my team and I were looking around online for, well, okay, where's the worst weather? Where's the worst weather right now?
Let's go to that. It's kind of the opposite of what most filmmaking, you're like, let's find better weather. But you guys are like, let's go into the storm. Take us there.
This is Twister now.
Exactly. It was exactly 180 degrees off the norm. It's like, because of course you're always like, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow. Shoot. It's like, no. Where's it going to rain tomorrow? So we ended up punting a couple of our locations and planning a shoot in the Arctic Circle, where there was a group of native Eskimos. There are Eskimos there who work on the turbines up there. But that was
Okay,
going
wait,
to take
quick question for you. I'm geographically challenged. Is the Arctic Circle like the North Pole or where is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There are actually like several North Poles. There are actually several poles, as I understand it. But the Arctic Circle is the top. Yes.
Okay.
The Antarctic is the bottom.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, while we were getting set for this Alaska trip, we said, well, where else is the weather pretty shitty? And that was in Twin Falls, Idaho. And there was a big wind farm there. And I had this vision from word go, from the time we came up with the name of the show, Turbine Cowboys. I had this vision for this helicopter shot of strafing over cattle, like a Western movie, like strafing over cattle, and then getting the cattle to run. So the helo is following with the stampede of cattle, and then just as we get to the turbine, the helo booms up, and you see that this huge wind turbine. So to link the whole thing, right? And we were shooting a lot in Texas and places like that, and I have a background as a horseman, and I grew up with cowboys, and so this whole thing was just like this one shot sort of encapsulated what I thought the show was. It was going to be a great selling point. It was definitely going to be in the show open, and so. Mind you, much of this is changing now with the wonderful advent of the drone, and I honestly, you would have to pay me a ton of money to get back on a helicopter now. They're so scary. I've lost 2 friends to them, helicopter crashes, and there's, in very rare instances, there's nothing you can't do with a drone, with a helicopter, you can't do with a drone. There's nothing you can do on a helicopter that you can't do with a drone. But this wasn't the case then. And so the way it worked, and I again, I come from background of being a shooter, but the way it would work is I would be in the front seat with a monitor, and my DP would be in the back seat dealing with the West Cam, which is the ball on the bottom of the helicopter that is actually what's filming. So it's almost like a little turret on a like a fighter jet, or like a bomber. And so we're going to go to this airfield, which is like this huge box of just turbines, and then this huge box of power lines that actually cordon off the entire thing. It's very, very big area, but once you get into flying a helicopter in it, it doesn't seem so big real quick. And so I'd done a bunch of helicopter shooting before, but I remember that we got this helicopter pilot. Now this is probably 15 years ago, so I'm sure a lot of these guys are dying out, but a lot of the helicopter guys, especially in those days, were ex-Vietnam pilots. Okay. And this guy was one for sure. He was a crusty, old Vietnam era pilot, very soft-spoken, looked kind of like an older Clint Eastwood, or looked like Clint Eastwood now. And and very taciturn, I'm not sure how to say that word, but didn't have a lot to say. It was very sort of like, we had to travel a good distance from the airport where we picked up the helicopter to the actual field, the turbine field. And so, on the way, and we're picking up, B-roll shots on our way. So shots of the town, shots of the actual Twin Falls, where there's Twin Falls in Idaho. And we get to to do this shot where we're gonna push these we get to the shot where we're going to push these cattle along and try to get this epic shot. And like the first few times we buzz them, just don't care. They just stand there eating. They don't care. And
how do you get them to move? Are there cowboys on the ground trying to move them?
No, this is the helicopter actually buzzing them. It's actually coming in and moving them, which is the way that I'm sure they still do it in some places,
Yeah.
although I'd imagine they're using drones more. But that's how a lot of cattle ranching is done now.
Huh.
It's done on it with helicopters, drones. I'm assuming drones and ATVs. Like they don't even want to use horses anymore.
Huh.
You know. So yeah, so it's a technique that they use. I had never used it, and clearly I didn't know what I was doing. But it took us a few times. We're like, oh, and I'm talking to the pilot, and it's really weird because each time we come in to get him to move, so I'm looking on the monitor in my hand. I'm not looking out the window. I'm looking at the monitor, and then each time we finish this pass to try to get him to scramble or to stampede, as the helicopter comes up, look right there is a turbine blade right there.
Oh my gosh.
And each time I'm like I remember the first time it happened, I'm looking at the monitor, they're not moving. So in my head, I'm just trying to think how we're going to get the cows to move. And then there would be this like shot. And the first time I looked up from the monitor and saw this blade, and I looked right back at the monitor, like I can't look.
Oh my God.
And then he would do some move and come off. So finally, I'm just getting so like, he's very skilled, obviously, but it's like, because it's this box, there's nowhere you can look where there's not either the huge turbine blade or a huge power line that we're headed for at all times.
This is crazy.
It was crazy. And so finally we get to pass, the cattle move. The shot's beautiful. I'm probably like yelping inside the
Yay.
helo, like, yay, we got it, and then he's sort of following it up, and then he's doing this move that he called crabbing, which is kind of like they move kind of sideways.
Huh.
And I'm like, and I'm just looking at the monitor, it's great. And I just hear him say, because of course everybody's on cans, you can't hear each other talk without headphones. And I hear him say to me, I don't think I can hold this much longer. And I just go, don't hold it. Don't hold it. I don't want you to hold it. Don't hold it.
Like, we're not that committed. We're not that committed. Let's go.
And then he just like did some pulled out thing. And it's the same thing. I'm looking at the monitor and I'm seeing these blades and I'm seeing power lines. And I just literally closed the monitor and just sit there and closed my eyes and said, let's go back now.
Oh my gosh.
And
that
so that was pretty scary, but I wasn't really terrified until he said, I don't think I can hold on to this, or whatever he said. That was like, from that guy, that was like somebody else screaming and pulling their hair out, because so that was
like, he clearly knew what he was doing. And if he was not feeling confident in that moment, you're like, we go wherever you want to go. Just get us back down in one piece.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And it's not like I was sitting there going, we must have more. We must have more drama. I was just going like,
I'm willing to die for the shot.
Just get the shot. Let's get the shot. Let's go home.
It sounds like the ultimate obstacle course for helicopters. Power lines, windmill,
cows.
And there was, and because of the setup, there was like no clear exit. There was no way to get out of anything without having to do some sort of a vertical maneuver, That was that one. I think that was my last helicopter ride.
I don't know if I would get another one again.
It'd probably be mine too. Yeah. Not about that.
Yeah. And now it's like with drones, you can, I use them all the time, even not for like aerials. I just use them and I'll just say, well, okay, throw the drone up, because that's quicker than throwing a boom up or throwing, a jib up. It's like, oh no, just float them up there about 10 feet, and, going in and out of buildings and stuff. It's fantastic. I think it's akin to, what is going to now be happening with with the use of arms on sets, with the use of guns on sets. I think a lot of people are going to go away from using any kind of blank at all. I think it'll all be computer generated, because it's like, why not? It's why risk it? It doesn't make any sense, now. And the same thing with drones. It's like, why risk that? There are some things that only helos could do, but it's also, the other thing is like, especially with the budgets that, I usually work with on the unscripted side, it's like, you could, but you can budget for like, maybe you can afford one day, and that's it, with helos, because they're so damn expensive. But with drones, if you got one on set, you just like, oh yeah, throw the drone up, and so I think it's one of the great technologies to have been developed for a lot of reasons, but especially for our business.
They're pretty awesome. Now, I want to hear a little bit more about the Arctic Circle. Sounds like you had a close call there, and this is all for the same show.
Well, I did 4 shows up there. I've had a few close calls. That was on the same show, though. We were, yes. So again, because we were looking for the worst weather, we ended up in the Arctic Circle, a town called Nome, Alaska, where, which is a real trip of a place. It's to that part of the world, which is a lot of natives. They're Eskimo tribes up there, and they live in what they call the villages around Nome. Nome is kind of Las Vegas to a lot of those folks, because that's where they can drink, because there's no alcohol in the villages. And there's actual like slot machines and bars and restaurants and things. It's not a garden spot, but for the village, people coming from the villages, it's a real big deal. And sadly, the guys in my crew used to call them zombie time, because you would see a lot of native men, usually so messed up on alcohol, and they're just staggering like a zombie. and it's like it's really, for me, it's really depressing. Like, it's depressing to see that and be around that. And it's also fascinating. There's everybody up there is some sort of a character, and a lot of them are like escaping something or trying to escape something, or so. So we get up there and we are shooting as the weather's coming and going, but it's pretty bad, and which is exactly what we wanted. Everybody's happy. We got bad weather. So the turbines that are just outside of the town of Nome are up on this mountain range above Nome, and they're servicing the town of Nome with a large part of their electricity. The guys that work on it are natives. There's some white guys who live there too, who are all part of it, but the guys who really climb the towers are natives. And so we were there for a few days and shooting with them, and I, I'm spending a lot of time with them and interviewing them. Got to really like a couple of guys, so this one day comes when we're going to go up onto the mountain, and we're going to shoot them climbing to fix something, and so we go up in the snow. The town of Nome has a rescue vehicle. It's a snowcat. So I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like tank treads. It just can go anywhere. It's the rescue vehicle for the entire town, the entire area. So the front is a kind of like a tank almost, with room for about 4 or 5 people, and that's what that's where the driver is and the communications, and in the back is a second rig, which is also tank treads, and it's a trailer. It's being trailered by the first vehicle. So there are people in the front, including the main cast, the sound guy, the director of photography, and the 2 guys from Nome who are piloting the snowcat, and they have a heater up there, by the way. I'm in the back with 2 native workers, and we don't have heaters, so we're all in. I'm in like I'm a cold baby anyway, so I was in a huge Arctic parka, and we've gone up and down, shooting a couple of guys going up and down, and including my DP climbing up, because all the DPs on that show, all the shooters had to be climbers. That's how we hired them, and so we sort of get done with all that, and we're sort of getting ready to like get off the mountain, and we're piling it's time for us to get off the mountain, so we're piling gear and crew into this snowcat, into the rescue vehicle. And I'm sitting in the back, and it's sort of like rumbling, idling, and with these two native guys, and they're acclimatized to this a lot more, obviously, than we are. They're like in light jackets in the back. I mean, this is really not that crazy for them. And it's true, if you spend enough time shooting in those circumstances, which I did, and you're in like 0 and 10 below, 20 below. When it gets to be like 30 above, it feels like t-shirt weather, because you really are, you just went 60 degrees warmer, right? So having grown up there and living there, they have a different take on it. So we're sitting there, and it's like nothing's happening, that we're not moving. And so I guess I radio up to the front, and the word comes back, we've lost the road. So now we're on the top of not a mountain, but a pretty big hill, and we can't see. It's complete whiteout. It's now the storm of the century, the storm of the 21st century.
You guys got what you wanted.
We got it. We got it. So full whiteout, can't move. They're idling just to keep the heat going. We got no heat, and we're okay. What's the plan? And they're saying, well, we're just going to wait until we can see the road again, because literally we could just drive off the mountain. You can't just blindly go.
Oh my
and there's
gosh.
Nobody going to save us. We're in the rescue vehicle.
You guys are on the rescue vehicle.
Oh no.
Yeah, and the phones don't work because of the weather, and there's no radio anywhere near us. Nobody we can't get a hold of anybody except each other in the front and back compartment. So, okay, hour goes by, and I'm sitting there looking at tape, just like, but I'm watching the guys, I'm watching the Eskimos that I'm with, because it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but like, when you're on a plane and there's like really heavy turbulence, like I always shoot a glance at the flight attendants, like how are they doing?
Worried should I be?
Yeah. Are they worried?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they're not worried, cool. I'm not worried, So I'm watching these guys, and we're chatting a bit, and they're not worried. So, okay. Cut to, I don't know, it's probably 2 or 3 hours. They're worried.
Oh,
and,
no.
We're cold. I'm certain there's not much food around. There's probably some water, but it's like, this is not good. It's going to be dark soon. And,
no.
That we will run out of fuel, and therefore everybody will be cold. Nobody's coming to get us. So probably an hour before sunset, the guys that I was with in the back there, they go, okay, we're going to find the road. They just jump out. It's like it's a rear exit, and this is you just hear it's just going, whoa! When they open the door, it's just like nothing you can imagine.
And they're just like in light jackets, like
they're in light jackets, So they go out front, in front of the main vehicle, and they're just like each in front of one of the treads. They're right in front of the vehicle, and they're just like doing these ginger little steps, and the snowcat is just like inching forward. And not only are they in danger of falling off the mountain, but also they're in danger of being blown under the treads. The visibility is so low from the cabin that they have to stay really close so that they can see these guys.
Yeah.
But, and like, they're like throwing up their arms to like, fight the wind. And so they're really in danger of being blown under the treads, but they can't get too much further away or they'll be lost. And then they could be lost to the storm.
Yeah. This is crazy. This is definitely a life or death situation. Oh my God.
And so, I'm writing to my family, and I'm just, at one point I remember sitting back there going, what are the choices in life that I've made that have led me to this place and time, and then all of a sudden we stop, and next thing I know, the rear door where I am comes flying open, and these two guys jump in, and they're just like covered white.
Iced over.
Yes. And they jump in, and they're freezing, and they go, we found it. Gung, gung, gung. It starts up, and they found the road. They just saved our lives. These guys just went, and theirs too, by the way.
Yeah.
So they saved us, and we just went down the road, and a few hours later we're partying with the crew at one of the only bars in Nome, the airline crew, because not only have we just gone through this, but the plane has frozen to the runway. Frozen to the runway. I have a picture of it actually.
Holy shit.
And so for the next 4 or 5 days, every morning we would all, the airline crew, my crew, everybody, we would all get up, get ready, fill the vans with our equipment, go back to the airport, and sit there and see if the plane was going to become unstuck. And then every day, after a few hours, they'd send us back, and we'd reload everything, go back, party with the airline crew that night, get up the next morning and do it again and again and again. And finally we got out. And that was not my last Arctic Circle experience, but that was the closest I think I've come to losing my life doing this silly job.
I can't believe you went back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Too. Couldn't be that bad, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't go back in the dead of winter. It was cold, but I didn't go back in the dead of winter.
Right.
I can't
Probably
even imagine.
a good choice. Probably a good choice. Oh my gosh. Well, geez, I mean, I can't imagine being put in a position like that to like have to question like, oh, am I gonna see us through the night? And then the level of bravery that these two people had to like jump out of this vehicle and be like, we're, maybe I fall off a ledge, but or maybe we find the road. It's truly incredible. Quite a bit of a confidence there for sure.
Yeah. No, they were. I mean, they were saving their own lives too. So it was enlightened self-interest heroics. But it was.
We all win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And I stayed in touch with those guys for a while too, because I completely credit them with making sure I got home.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, no joke.
That's quite the story, Steve.
Yeah. Moving on to warmer things, I hear something about Cuban crocodiles in Orlando, and I can't just hearing that, I can't get the image of like a crocodile smoking a fat Cuban cigar out of it.
Oh God! Yet another instance where I had to have a conversation with myself that went, "What are the choices in life you've made that have brought you to this point?" So I was shooting a show for Discovery Channel called Swamp Brothers, and it was about the largest venomous reptile farm in the country. And they had tons of like insane snakes, alligators, crocodiles, including Cuban crocodiles, who are some of the nastiest. This huge complex. And I mean, I'm not a big lover of snakes and reptiles to begin with.
I'm not either. I don't think I would show up there. Like that sounds like not for me.
I remember at one point my daughter came to visit the set, and we went into the rattlesnake room. There was this entire shed, and they're filled with, like, I don't know, hundreds of rattlesnakes of all different sorts.
God.
All in boxes and tanks all over the place. And when one walks in the room, they all start rattling. It's deafening.
Ooh. That sounds like something out of a nightmare.
It is. It really is. And it stinks unbelievably bad. I had no idea how bad it was going to. So my daughter and I went into the rattlesnake room, and he goes, you know, and it's like, we're both like, why? And I think she was like, Dad, let's go. Let's go. You know? And then, you know, there was lots of stuff we were shooting that was like really, I would say some of it was borderline dangerous, and a lot of it was really creepy, like spitting cobras. You know, like the shooters would have these like welders masks on, and try to get the spitting cobras to spit at their face, at the lens of the camera.
Is the spit poisonous?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they spit at your eyes. That's what they do. They're spitting the venom in your eyes.
Oh,
I was like, God. I mean, you couldn't have paid me enough to be shooting that, man. Like, but these guys were like, they're just into it, you know. And one of the things that they did that actually was really, really cool. No alligators were hurt. And I have the footage somewhere. It's amazing. Is one of them mounted an alligator. That's what they call it. You mount from the back. That's when you're going to, like, you've seen the guys that, like, you know, that hold the mouth closed, like the hillbilly stuff. And,
yeah.
And this guy mounted a gator and put a GoPro around the gator's neck and put it up so it was on top of his head, and set him loose in the water. And we just have all this amazing footage of this gator going in and out of swamps, and you see other creatures. It was very, very cool. But I digress. So one of the things that these guys would do is they would have breeding programs for crocodiles, and there were other exotic animal owners in the area that they would sort of like do deals with, and let's have our female mate with your male, and then we'll split the eggs and sell them. So anyway, long story short, we go to this. Yeah, kind of, yeah. And there was this one guy, local guy, really interesting guy named Mike Kennedy, who was is a pilot. He's a corporate pilot, but he also repos planes. And we ended up later on actually making a series around him that was a hit and worked for him. But he had been like, it was a crazy man. He'd been a motorcycle stuntman, like jumped with Evel Knievel in front of 90,000 people at the LA Coliseum, raced super bikes, looked like Clint Eastwood. I mean, it was a real trip of a guy. So at one point we were shooting a sequence with Cuban crocodiles. Cuban crocodiles are not the biggest, but they're among the fiercest. They're really bellicose. Like, they really like to kill and eat shit. And I don't remember how it happened exactly, but it's sort of the chaos of these things could be. And so the character that we were following, Mike Kennedy, he's dealing with these Cubans, and one of them's in a pen, but he has to move it to another pen. I don't remember the details, but all I remember is all of a sudden this torrential downpour hits, and I'm outside of the cages. Like, I think I've told this to Kristen before. Is I paid all my hardman dues long ago. I have nothing to prove. I'm perfectly happy to be out here with a monitor going, looks great, guys. And but all of a sudden, uh, crazy downpour. You can't even see. It's and I'm seeing that there's one cameraman in this pen shooting this one Cuban crocodile, but I see behind him where there's this pond that there's this other Cuban crocodile coming out of the pond slowly.
Oh no.
Towards the cameraman. I think his name was Julio, actually, coming towards the cameraman. Obviously not just attacking, because there would be nothing I could have done, but he's like, and I'm like going, and I'm so like, like, oh man, like it was like two angels on the shoulder. Like one was saying, you better do something, man. You better do something. The other one was like, it's like, what am I going to do? It's like, you want me to do something? So I don't know what possessed me. It's just because I just couldn't see, I couldn't let something happen to a crew member. So anyway, the way these guys deal with these Cubans is they have these big pieces of PVC, like long, 8-foot, 2-inch PVC. And that's how they sort of fend them off. So I pick one up and I go into the thing. And now I turn my back to the camera guy because he's faced off against this one. I turn my back to him and I'm holding this thing.
Oh my God.
There's this Cuban crocodile. He's coming right up to the end of this thing. And I'm just, again, I have that moment. I go, what are the choices I've made that have led to this?
Oh my God.
Off a crocodile.
And I don't know
PVC pipe.
I don't know what I'm doing. And I've never done this, And so I'm holding it, and I'm like, I'm gonna hit it if it comes any closer. I don't know what else to do. And I mean, I just wish that somebody had been shooting the behind the scenes of that, because the cameraman's on the crocodile trying not to get killed, the showrunner's in the pen trying not to get killed and trying to keep him from getting killed, and we're all almost drowning in this downpour. Oh my God. And
your adrenaline had to be going in that moment.
God knows. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't have a heart attack. It was just like, Ugh! I mean, the stress was so intense. And if you look up Cuban crocodiles, you'll see, I mean, not only are they really mean, they're killers, but they're so ugly. They are. It's like you're looking at a dinosaur, man. This is a dinosaur that will kill you in a heartbeat,
I'd be afraid if it came up and I hit it with the PVC pipe that it'd make it mad, and then it's like, oh, I'm really coming for you.
What's my next move after the initial hit? Like, what do I do after that? They didn't give you any training about that?
There was nobody around. There was nobody to give training. I didn't want training. I never planned on doing anything like that.
I didn't want to be this close. I didn't want to be in this position.
Keep me on the other side of the fence, man. And so everything that you just said, yeah, that's what I'm thinking is like, so am I going to make him more mad? What do I do? I don't think this PVC pipe's going to really hurt him that bad.
I think it might just piss him off more.
Exactly.
I can make the situation worse.
If he comes for me, what do I do? I was like, there was nobody around. And again, that was just like, it was a time to re-examine my life.
Oh my gosh. Woo. That's wild. I'm glad you made it out alive.
Yes, I am too. So we can have this conversation, and I would add to this because I just remembered it. So a year or so later, when I was developing the show, it was originally called Air Raiders, that became Airplane Repo, which starred Mike Kennedy. When I was doing the sizzle reel, the pilot for it, one-man band, just me and him going out, and I'm shooting him stealing a plane, which he can legally do. You'd be surprised at how easy it is to steal a plane. I was. A lot of times, these planes that the air repo guys, they're not at LAX. They're at a small private airport. There's no TSA, and also they're not locked. Like you can, because it's not like people steal planes all the time, except Mike Kennedy does. So, and he's talking to me. This is all on film. He's talking to me. He's like, okay, put the camera down now. Okay, bring it back up. Okay, we're gonna do this. I'm moving quick. Just act like you know what you're doing. Act like you're supposed to be here. So, anyway, we're going through all this, and there's no, and this is probably the time I came closest to dying, actually. So
You've had a couple close calls.
He goes in, but total user error. This would have been so my fault and his. But anyway, so there's this plane he's going to steal. He gets in. He says, "Look, it's like you don't even need a key. You just open it up and you go in." And he's firing it up. And so now I'm shooting, and I'm also asking questions, and at one point, and this is why it wouldn't have been his fault, because he was multi-brain too. He's trying to do his actual job and starting this plane to take off, and he's also talking to me, and I'm asking questions like, "Tell me what you're doing now." All the stuff you do when you're making these shows. It's like, "Tell me what you're doing. What's the next step? How are you feeling?" Et cetera, et cetera. So at one point, I'm shooting him. He's in the cab. He's fired up the engines, and now I'm looking at my image, and I'm backing up to widen my image. And I swear to God, I look like this, and I am 6 inches from the point of the engine that's, spinning. Like 6 inches my back. Because I'm not thinking about anything but my shot.
Oh my gosh.
Right, for that moment. And also, I've got a shitload going on in my head. I'm trying to, are cops coming? I'm trying to get the shots, trying to get the inserts. I'm trying to get little bits from him. So I'm like so multitasked and so stressed. And I just go like this, and I just do one of those little scoots for
Oh my gosh.
And I just go
shiver in a scoot.
Yeah. And I was like shocked. Like, I'm sure it wasn't going at full speed because it would have been so crazy loud, but it was going fast enough to chop me into pieces. You know? And
holy shit, that's crazy.
And I guess because the whole thing was so pirate, there was no support. I had no crew. There was nobody looking out for anybody, And I didn't even tell him because it was like, what could you do? It's like, well, I didn't get chopped up, and he closes the door, and I back away, and he fires up the engines and flies off.
And you just keep shooting.
Just kept shooting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's what happened with Mike Kennedy, and so stay away from Mike Kennedy. He's a dangerous guy to be around.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you've had your share of dangerous experiences. My goodness.
That one would have just been so bloody stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Filmmaker chopped to pieces
while stealing a plane.
Quite the headline that would be. Holy moly.
How did it happen? I don't know. I think he just backed in.
You just walked into it. I know how that is though, because when you're so focused on a shot, you're not conscious of anything else going on, and it's like,
right,
and
it was kind of the inverse of like the camera monitor story in the helicopter is like when it was too scary for me, I just looked at the monitor because it was too scary to look out there. Oh, now I can just be here, and it's all some weird, naive, quixotic attempt to control something that you can't control.
We'll just stay in this frame and I'm good.
Yeah. I'm safe here.
Oh my gosh. Enjoying this episode? A bonus story drops next week. Subscribe below so you don't miss it.
While you're there, please give us a like. It really helps us out.
With that, should we go ahead and wrap it up?
Well, I want to thank you for sharing some crazy ass stories. I've heard some of your stories. I didn't know that it got this crazy.
I'm pretty mind blown, I have to say. Like I can't believe some of the
you kept like one-upping yourself, and we're just like, where's this going? My God.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's certainly a none of this was planned. I mean, I have a background. I have kind of a thrill-seeking background, and I like to surf big waves and climb big rocks, and I was an armored jouster, and that was terrifyingly wonderful. But once I sort of matriculated into the showrunner position, I thought I would be fairly safe. I didn't realize that story was going to continue.
Oh no, it definitely does. There's still opportunities for thrill seekers in this business like yourself. So, with that, are there any thrills you are currently seeking? Is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to share?
Excuse me. I am. I'm still training horses every day, which puts me at great risk, even though I love it. But I'm working on a television piece about an amazing kid named Doc Paskowitz, who is the namesake heir to the surfing and adventure throne of Doc Paskowitz, his grandfather, who was an amazing waterman, author, surfer, adventurer, raised 9 kids in an RV, going all around the world surfing. Tremendous story. And this is a story about a kid who was raised in this very alternative way, who his goal is to become the youngest submarine captain in history. Wow. And what they're doing as a family, what he's doing is not without risk, and it's a tremendous adventure. And he's basically a kid who wants to be the next Jacques Cousteau, and for a 17-year-old kid to even know who Jacques Cousteau was is pretty amazing. So that's sort of what I'm literally working on as we speak right now. And
I can't wait to see that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I'll send you the link when I'm done.
Yes, please.
I'm fortunately doing it from the safety of my home here in Joshua Tree. I'm not scraping the bottom of the ocean on a frickin' submarine, but yeah, that's my passion project right now.
No, awesome. That sounds really cool. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Let me see.
Because you're not really on Instagram. Do you have just like a website?
Yeah, I have an Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, that could be a good place.
My Instagram is The Other Steve Jones.
The Other Steve
all
Jones.
One word, The Other Steve Jones. And that's because when I was coming up in punk rock, there was a famous Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. And we were roughly the same age. We were both Welsh. I was more handsome, but we looked a little bit alike. And he was a very, very famous punk rocker. I was only a semi-famous punk rocker, but I was so tired of being the other Steve Jones that later on in my later band, The Unforgiven, I changed my name to my grandfather's name because I was sick of being the other Steve Jones. But I got over it, so now I'm the other Steve Jones on Instagram.
Once again,
the better Steve Jones.
I don't know, better, but cuter.
There you go.
And Steve and I are friends, really dear friends. After the Pistols broke up, he started another band, and my band opened for that band, and wow. He's got a very famous radio show I've been on a few times. We're buddies, but yeah, he's the more famous Steve Jones. I just have to accept it.
I love that. Well, that's The Other Steve Jones for you, everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and that's it for Shoot the Shit.
Join us for the next shit show.
Thanks for having me.
No Longer Network.